Hello, everyone, and welcome to another edition of Singularity Podcast. Singularity Podcast is a regular feature of Singularity weblog where you can go and download it or listen to it in full. Today, I have the privilege of having Terry Grossman for my guest. Terry Grossman, MD, is one of America's leading authorities in anti-aging and longevity medicine. He has co-authored two books with famed inventor and futurist Ray Kurzweil, the first one called Transcend, 9 Steps to Living Well Forever, and the previous one was called Fantastic Voyage. A 1968 graduate from Brandeis University, Dr. Grossman received his MD from the University of Florida in 1979. Following his postgraduate training in St. Joseph's Hospital in Denver, he spent 15 years as a community family doctor in the Colorado Mountains before opening Grossman Wellness Center in Denver in 1994. His clinic emphasizes advanced nutritional therapies and preventive anti-aging medicine. Grossman has developed numerous cutting-edge protocols for measuring and modifying biological age and promoting longevity. So, without further ado, let me start this interview by welcoming Dr. Terry Grossman to Singularity Podcast.
Hi, thank you very much. Glad to be here.
Very well, Terry, it's entirely our pleasure. Let me jump straight into the questions by asking you to share a little bit with our viewers and listeners about your background and more specifically, how you got to be interested in medicine in general and in anti-aging and longevity in specific.
Well, I've been a doctor for a little over 30 years. And during that period of time, I spent the first 15 years that I was a doctor practicing medicine in a conventional sense, the same way that I had been taught in medical school. I was a small town doctor in the Colorado Mountains, and I delivered babies at the local 19-bed hospital. I took care of the children from the local YMCA camp when they got fish hooks or fell off of horses. I also was called in to take care of people who got in bar fights at 2 o'clock in the morning. So it was a very interesting and varied practice, and I enjoyed it a lot from 1980 to 1995. But around 1993, 1994, I was fortunate enough to have attended the first meeting of a new society called the American Academy of Anti-Aging Medicine, A4M. And anti-aging medicine was born in about 1994, and that was at the age I was 48. And I personally had just begun to experience this process we refer to as aging. And I had started to develop a few little symptoms that were robbing me of the type of youthful vitality I'd been used to having prior to that. So I was fascinated when I saw this advertisement in a medical journal for anti-aging medicine. I went to the meeting, and my life and practice was changed forever, because I decided that I would begin to look at aging, the process of aging, as a disease, and see what I could do in my medical practice to help both myself and my patients to slow down, to stop, to measure, to assess this process of aging. So beginning in 1995, I moved from the small town in the Colorado Mountains and opened the Grossman Wellness Center in Denver, and have been doing this type of preventive anti-aging medicine ever since.
That's a fascinating story. Maybe we can dig in a little bit deeper into the sort of philosophical or ethical dimensions, because that seems to be a huge change of your mindset from treating people who fell off from horses or after bar fights, etc., going into the cutting edge field of anti-aging and longevity medicine. And especially your point of view of perceiving death as a disease rather than as a normal part of life. Would you mind sharing how that whole worldview, that's a fundamental worldview, how did it change for you?
It just seemed to me that I know that we have the ability to live, the human being can live to 124 years. Today, that is our maximum lifespan. No one can live beyond 124 years due to the telomeres on the end of our chromosomes. The longest period of time that any human being has been documented to live was the woman from France, Ms. Calment, who live to be 122 and a half. However, number one, less than one person in a billion lives to be, the statistics are one person in 1,000 lives to be 100. One person in a million lives to be 110. And one person in a billion lives to be 120. And none of us live past 124. And even so, most of us don't even experience optimal health for much more than 30 or 40 years.
Yeah.
And it's because we have been essentially programmed by circumstances, by both our genetics and the epigenetic circumstances of our lifestyles for tens of thousands of years to survive in an environment where it really didn't make much sense for us to live for more than 30 years. The 30 years is important because we were given 15 years to grow up, to learn how to survive in the world, then to reproduce, and then to have 15 more years to take care of the next generation, to teach them how to survive in the world. And then at that point, we became simply an extra mouth to feed, and it makes sense for us to experience this, quote, aging process, which is designed to rob us of our health and to get rid of us. If by some chance we were lucky enough to live past 30, then we made it to 50, then women go through menopause, men go through andropause, and our hormone levels begin to drop suddenly. When that happens, even more of our health is robbed. And so many people are living longer periods of time, but they're not living in optimal health. So I found it very fascinating to see what we could do to modify this process with what the best of modern medicine has to offer.
So, speaking of the best that modern medicine has to offer, would you consider your research of anti-aging and longevity to be part of mainstream medicine, or sort of at the fringe, even cutting edge, or even the fringe of medicine? Because, I mean, I have a number of friends who are medical doctors, and most of them do not perceive death as a disease. I mean, most of them would consider death beyond their remedy, and quite natural at the end of life. So, ideologically, even if you will, life extension beyond, say, 120 years, would that be a normal possibility, and would that be one considered as part of mainstream advanced medical science today?
Well, I don't regard death as a disease. I regard aging as a disease, and I regard death as a tragedy. And it's one that hopefully we will be able to forestall, and people will be able to live to their 80s, their 90s, beyond 100, and then eventually beyond 120. I think we will see people later this century being able to live past 150 and 200 years of age, but they will also be living in vigorous, good health. So most conventional physicians and most people today are accustomed to thinking about aging in the old-fashioned way.
Exactly.
The image of an 80-year-old like Whistler's mother, which is someone who is in a wheelchair, who needs someone to help take care of them, whose mental and physical faculties are not optimal. But that's not what I look at. What I look at is I have many patients who are in their 80s and in their 90s. They're still at work. They're working full-time. They enjoy vigorous, good health. They're still exercising. Their minds are sharp. So this is what we're looking for. Yet it takes a while for conventional physicians to accept this as part of mainstream medicine, because I was trained as a conventional doctor, and what I learned in medical school was that aging is a natural process. It's normal, and it's really not something that, as physicians, we should be looking to treat as a disease. We should treat diseases. In other words, we are, as medical doctors, more reactive than proactive. We wait for disease to happen far too often. We wait for patients to develop high blood pressure. We wait for patients to develop diabetes, heart disease, cancer, Alzheimer's disease. But we do have the ability, I think, to detect early stages of these processes to a far better extent than we have been doing so far. And if we can make these earlier detections, I think we can be much more aggressive and nip these diseases in the bud so that they don't have their full expression.
So let me go back to your original motivation going to that meeting. You were 48 at the time, and you said you yourself started to experience the first symptoms of aging. And would that be your main motivation today, or what would it be? Would it be trying to extend your own life and the lives of people that are close to you emotionally, etc., or is it a general humanitarian motivation that you have pushing to move forward on your research?
Well, I am a doctor, and this is my calling. This is my life. I love being a doctor. I love people, and I regard it as my life work, my mission to help my patients to live as healthy and as long as possible and in the best quality of life as possible. So I feel that by practicing anti-aging medicine, by practicing preventive medicine, I am helping my patients to the best degree possible. And of course, since I'm helping my patients, I'm interested in helping my friends and helping my family and helping myself as well.
And in that case, there seems to be the main focus from reactive medicine to a proactive medicine, from one which creates responses to certain diseases to one that anticipates in advance and sort of eliminates the advancement of those diseases, or at least their progression. So what would be, in your opinion, the best way to push forward, or what would be, say, the top 9 tips that you have from your book, maybe, to increase longevity?
Well, I could give a couple examples. The 2 main pillars that Ray Kurzweil and I talk about in our last book, Transcend, is prevention of disease and early detection of disease. Prevention of disease is things that people can do by themselves, by the lifestyle choices they make, by eating properly, exercising well, controlling their stress, controlling their weight, taking supplementation, etc. And then early detection would be things that are typically done with the assistance of medical professionals to have appropriate blood tests, ultrasound scans, and things like that.